I'm sitting here in beautiful Norway, and apparently this is my job. Behind the camera there's my good friend Tobias, and he's also my creative director. A few miles from here, my two best friends, Frederick and Anton, is sitting in a cabin and probably working. This morning I woke up and I made myself a cup of coffee. I sat down and wrote like I do every single morning. I send an email out to my list. That is how I get clients. Then I had a status call with a client in my agency. I had a group call with my community of cool clients. And then I had a kickoff call with a new client. For the rest of today, I'll be doing some content. All of the stuff that I've written in this book will make it out and live on the internet. And if you were to ask me when I would like to retire, which means not do any of this anymore, I'd say never. So that's what I wanted to make a video about today, because for the first time ever since starting my business, that is my answer to that question. If you had asked me a few years ago, when I was in Dubai with 14 full-time employees and running a completely different business, I would have told you that I would hope to retire in 5 years from now, when I had hit that magic number on my account. Because when I grew up, I thought that was the only way that you could run a business. You know, both of my parents are school teachers. Not a single person in my family went to university. Now, don't feel bad for me. This is not a rags to riches story. It's just the fact that I wasn't exposed to running a business growing up. I was exposed to a bunch of other values and ways of doing things that I've carried with me throughout this chapter that I'm in now. But the only relationship that I had with businesses was the things that I heard about in the news. You know, you'd hear about this guy or this woman who had got this brilliant new idea, the new invention that they had then spent 10 years in a basement building while only getting bread and water to live off while working 100 hours a week. And then suddenly from one day to another, a big company, a venture capitalist firm, had bought them out for multiple millions of dollars. And then suddenly they had sold the thing that they had worked on, and now they were retired, which means that they can now do whatever they want. And then the story would always be that these people regretted all of the hours that they worked. They regretted missing family birthdays, their son's football game, or whatever it might be. So I carried that mentality into my first business. I thought it was supposed to be hard. It was supposed to be tough. You were supposed to sacrifice everything in order to build this big business with a lot of people, a lot of overhead, a lot of stress, departments, everything. Until I asked myself one day, like, does it really have to be this way? You know, especially also considering the business that I was running, a coaching and consulting business built on my face. Like, why do we have a 6-person sales team? Why are there 2 full-time people talking to the clients? Why do we have an agency telling me what to say in my marketing? So I had to ask myself all of these questions that I had assumed to be true. But I also realized that the thing that I loved the most is creating, it is writing, and being useful to others, primarily through content and working with clients. And I realized that a personal brand cannot be exited. So that is the first point that I want to run you through. It is how I've learned a lot of things from shifting my perspective towards a business that is built on your face versus a business that isn't. Because a lot of people in my industry, and myself included, took a lot of bad habits from industries where they tell you to productize everything. Everything has to be scalable and systemized, and you need people, and everything has to run without you. Well, I would actually like to run my business and do everything myself, if I have to be completely honest. I don't really want a lot of people. That's not really why I got into coaching and consulting. I didn't get into it to manage people and to get others in, and then me managing them doing the task that I actually like to do. So if you are here and you have a coaching consulting agency, a business that is built on your face, and when I say that, I mean it in a good way, because you make a living from sharing your ideas, the things that you believe to be true, and people work with you because of your service, but actually probably primarily because of you and who you are and the things that you do and the values that you share. So I had to realize this, that a personal brand could not be exited. So I was like, okay, well, if I'm not building my business to be exited, then it's the opposite, right? It's how do I build a business that I would never want to exit, which was the questions that I asked myself 2 years ago when I shut down that first coaching business and let the entire team go and bought my business partner out. I had to sit down with a notebook like this and then ask myself, what are the things that I would like to do every single day, no matter the income, no matter what are the things that I would never want to let go of. And for me, it is creating and writing. It is to build businesses with people that I would consider friends and only have to talk to people that also gives me energy back, which is the criteria for me before I onboard a client. It's that it's actually a person that I'd enjoy working with. So I want you to do the same. I want you to ask yourself, what are the things that you genuinely love to do and the things that you would never like to outsource, and then build your entire business around it. My entire business is built on my writings. I write a lot. I write multiple hours per day, at least an hour. And that is how I do everything. I send an email that gets me clients because that's where I make my offers and I tell a story every day. My writings makes it into a YouTube video because Toby forces me to turn on the camera and then say the things that I wrote down. Clips and bits and pieces of the YouTube videos gets turned into Instagram Reels that gets new people into the world and my ecosystem. And that is the thing that I like to do. So I'll never outsource it, right? And when I had that first list of the things that I like to do, I also had to make kind of the opposite. I had to ask myself, well, these are the things that I like, but what are the things that drains me? What are the things that I do not look forward to? And then I made rules and I made constraints for my business. Because when all you care about is an end goal, when all you care about is the exit, when all you care about is the retirement, which means getting away from something, then you will do anything that you can in order to get there as fast as possible. So the outcome and where you're working towards suddenly becomes more important than the journey there. And that's why a lot of people end up with a very bad relationship with their business. It's because they're willing to do anything to get to the outcome. Whereas for me, I suddenly removed this outcome. I removed the end goal, the exit, the retirement. So for me, there's only a journey. There is no finish line. It's probably when I hit the grave. But I'm not going to structure my business for that. So I had to ask myself, what are the things that I do not like to do? What are the things that I do not enjoy? And that question, you can of course only ask yourself this question if you're in a position where you can say no to certain things because you have cash flow or savings or a good foundation. So just take it in your own steps. The way that I want you to do it, or the way that you can take inspiration from, is what I did. I started by setting one rule at a time. I remember the first rule that I set, it was that I could only have calls 3 days a week. So that meant that I could only talk to clients and have sales calls back then 3 days a week. Suddenly I got so many clients that I had to choose to either speak to a stranger on a sales call or talk to my clients, where it made perfect sense to say, hey, I'll always like to only talk to clients. And that's how I got rid of sales calls, because I had to be creative, right? Creativity only exists within constraints. So because there is a constraint that you have to operate through, that is where you get creative and realize, how do I solve this thing based on the constraint that I'd set? In my first coaching business, I didn't have a rule of how many days that I could take calls. I would take calls 6 days a week, right? Because there was no constraint. So I would just fit everyone into my schedule and sure, book in here, book in there. So setting rules and constraints for my business helped me a lot by designing my life first and the rules that I would like to have in order to live a good life, and then build the model around it, which I call the digital coffee shop. And now there are many rules. It's only going to be me and Toby. I'm not going to hire any more people. I have to operate at 80% profit. Clients I consider friends. Only calls 3 days a week, etc. So I add another rule every time I feel like I need a constraint to operate within. So now that you know exactly, now that you've accepted that, hey, I'm not building this business towards an exit. I'm building it towards forever, and I want to build it into the greatest vehicle ever. You know exactly what you like to do, but you also know the rules and constraints that you need to operate within. I want you to understand the season that you're in and which game that you're playing. Because I think for me, I know that I don't know if I'll have a group community called Fred's Inner Circle, where we do a bunch of weekly calls and in-person events, and just a lot of cool people there, all working towards or already are doing 500 grand a year with their solo businesses. I do not know if I want to do that, if I'm doing that in 20 years. But I know that the tasks that I'm doing will be the same as I'm doing now. The delivery format will just be different. So it doesn't matter for me if I'm writing a course, or if I'm writing a book, or if I'm writing a YouTube video. It doesn't matter if I'm speaking a video today to 8,500 subscribers, or I'm creating a video for 50,000 subscribers. It doesn't matter if I'm useful or sharing my ideas to one person on a one-on-one call on how they can grow their business and fix their constraints, or if I'm standing on a stage and sharing my ideas to thousands of people who hopefully also want to turn their skill set into a solo consulting business in 10 years from now. So what I've accepted is that I call it the snowball of leverage, the snowball of impact. I don't really know it yet, but it's something where I can clearly see a pattern in my business and in my development over the last 4 years of creating content, is that the more content that I put out, the more people I attract, and the bigger and higher leverage and impact I have. And then the only vehicle that I have to determine is the medium that I deliver my information in, whether that's a one-on-one call or being on a stage. So I think it's not everyone's dream to always, or to let's say do done for you agency work for the rest of their lives. It's not everyone's goal to do one-on-one consulting calls until the day that they're not here anymore. But it develops. You have to unlock the different seasons and the different goals by simply just doing it and consistently showing up and sharing your ideas. Because the medium that you'll deliver it in will change, but your stories and your values and your workflow and the things that you believe to be true will remain the same, right? And the last part to all of this is that if this feels a bit fluffy because you currently, let's say you don't have a business, or you're currently in a business that you don't really like, maybe you're the back-end operator or whatever it might be. Denzel Washington talks a lot about this, and it is about finding your gift and then sharing it with the world. Because I think once you find the thing that you truly enjoy and that you're also good at, then you will never want to retire, because it feels true to you and it's close to you. So why would you ever stop doing it? And I think with the world that is so fast-paced today with social media, which one is incredible for leverage and these things, but also ruins our attention span and everything in between, because we don't really have any time to look past our feed. And with AI and everything, I want you to really challenge you, no matter what business you're in, to really find this thing that you enjoy and then bring it more and more and more and more into your work, so that you can implement it, so that it's such a large part of your business that you can then never want to retire from it. Because retirement is really only something you talk about when it is things that you're not able to, or things that you do not like. That is only where we talk about retirement, right? I think we all have parents that are looking forward to their retirement, not because they don't like their job, but because they would probably not do it for free for the rest of their life, right? So I hope this video was useful to you. I want you to take what's useful and leave the rest. It's my thoughts on how I see my business and how I treat it, by doing the things that I like to do within rules of constraints, by doubling down on what feels easy and natural to me that others might find hard, and then about how I'm treating the different seasons of my business with the different mediums and the different focus points that I have, by understanding the short-term game that I'm playing, but also the role that it plays in the next 10, 20 years. So let's not take all of those bad habits from all the business-to-business corporate stuff, because the personal brand cannot be sold, and it's not supposed to.